Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in the Inland Empire. We're joined today by Elliott Duchon. He is the superintendent for Jurupa Unified School District. It's a new year.
It's a new year.
The kids are filing into their classrooms, and I want to talk about the children and talk about the opportunities that are presented to children. I've read studies, you've read studies, which indicate that so much of the opportunities presented to kids depends on their familial situation. Could you talk to us about that?
That is so true, Brad. In our district, about 80% of the kids come from families of poverty. And we know when we look at adverse childhood experiences, poverty is one of the worst. It's just a tough start in life. There's been a lot of research, I won't go into all of it, that shows a difference in cortical surface area.
But actually, I kind of do want to go into the research.
I'm happy to. Yeah.
When you provided this to me, I was absolutely stunned at the statistics. A $10,000 increment in family income was associated with a 16% increase in high school graduation rates.
You betcha.
I mean, how is that possible? Like,
so you have a chart in front of you that looks at adverse childhood experiences, and poverty is one of the biggest ones of them. So when you look at those, and poverty often associated with other problems, when children have more than one or two or three, they have a life pathway that's much more difficult, at least that mine was. So we have a difference in cortical surface area that's directly correlated with parents' income level. 6% difference in cortical surface area between kids who have parental income of less than $25,000 and parents who have $150,000 income.
that is remarkable.
And this is literally brain science. I mean, this is people doing functional MRIs on infants from different socioeconomic status ranges.
Why?
Well, that's a good question. We think, and I'm not the researcher, that it has a lot to do with response to stress. And when you have a response to stress, what happens is you jump, you run, you hide, or something like that. You have a cortical surface, corticoid response in your brain, cortisone.
Okay,
it's adrenaline.
Right.
It's like I saw a tiger, wow.
It's fight or flight.
It's fight or flight, and you get a flash memory of it. But when that happens a lot with kids and they're not in a strong social environment, it starts having a detrimental effect on how their brain develops.
So here's the question. What can a public school do? You're in possession of this information, you know it, you get these kids 4, 5, 6 years old. What can you do to try to make up for that deficit? Can we see that 6% grow back, I guess? How does this work?
So the answer is most likely yes.
Okay.
And I'll start with it was a Scandinavian research study, late adoption study, where kids were from poverty, orphanages, were adopted in the upper SES families, socioeconomic status. Over a period of 8 years, their IQ increased by 13 points. We used to think IQ was fixed. It's not. So there are things we can do, and we think what does it is complex novel learning, hope, physical activity, a hopeful environment.
But let me ask you though, that study suggests that if you take the kid out of one familial environment, put them in another, which is more socioeconomically advantageous, you get that jump. Obviously, you're not going to be moving kids between families, but I do hear what you're saying, that you can supplement, I guess, in school.
Exactly. So we're providing things like wraparound services. So when the family comes to school, if they're having some issues, whether they're economic, whether they're familial, whether they're social, they can go right to a service provider through the school. We're providing infant services to brand new mothers based on a model called nurse-parent model, where nurses go out and provide just coaching the new parents. We're providing high-quality preschool. High-quality preschool has been one of the most effective things we've done for poverty over the last 40 years.
It is remarkable. Study after study indicates that programs such as Head Start really have been transformative. And then I am equally as compelled by the same studies which look at third grade reading scores.
Exactly.
And that's how demographers predict the prison population in 15 to 20 years. That whole school to prison pipeline.
Exactly. So when you have kids that come in with 3 or 4 or 5 adverse childhood experiences that are not mediated or mitigated later on, they're likely to go to prison, they're likely to become alcoholics. The high scope Perry preschool study, which was done 40 years after the Perry preschool study, found that the now adults who went to Perry preschool had fewer numbers in jail, fewer numbers of alcoholics, they were more likely to be employed, they were more likely to be married. So what we can do in the school is we start addressing those issues. We provide a tough curriculum, we provide opportunities for physical education, music, arts, and we provide services to families as much as we can through the school.
I remember when my kids were in elementary school, they're now 7th and 9th grade, I went to a lecture, and this psychologist presented the concept of growth versus fixed mindset. Apparently, Jurupa Unified has adopted that pedagogy, I guess you could say. It's a fascinating one.
So we're implementing a program that we're calling Building Better Brains for all kids. And you're talking about the work of Carol Dweck at Stanford. There's also a professor at UPenn, Angela Duckworth, who talks about grit.
I actually wrote an article about it for my daughter's school's magazine.
And these things tend to trump what we think of as native ability.
Let's talk about grit. I love it. Because for so long, we were taught to treat our children in such a way that they felt cherished, that they felt adored, that they felt loved. I'm not taking that away, but what Professor Duckworth is telling us is they also need to have a sense of self, that they can be resilient, they can persevere, they have grit.
Right, and I would call that a sense of self-efficacy, which you can teach in school. You can't teach them self-esteem, but you can teach them to be successful at activities. So I become successful if I can jump 2 inches, maybe I can jump 4. Bad analogy because I'm flat-footed and can't jump anywhere.
But let me ask you, do help us understand that balance between cherishing a child, which I think is critical, especially for some of these kids who have faced childhood trauma, with creating grit and resiliency.
So you can take a child, let's say it's my child or your child, and they're struggling. And you can say, I love you, I care about you. Now I'm going to help you reach that goal. Let's set a goal and figure out what it's going to take, and let's not give up till we get there. And I think there's a big difference between kind of coddling kids and making them feel comfortable as opposed to loving them and making them work hard to get to their goals. And I think a lot of times schools are expected maybe to challenge kids but not make it tough on them. And you know, there's too much homework. That's another thing. I'm not sure homework is the answer, but we want kids to learn to work hard. It's not a trait you're born with. It's something you have to learn.
So how are the parents taking to these programs?
Well, so far so good. I mean, we're opening a brand new music academy. We have every 4th, 5th, and 6th grader almost in band right now. And the parents want their kids to learn. They want their kids to go to college. They want their kids to be successful. And I think always, whatever generation's a little bit older really recognizes that I think the next one has to work hard.
I have to tell you, from my perspective, the best attribute one could give their child, their student, is that ability to be resilient. I truly believe that.
I agree with you.
His name is Elliott Duchon. He is the superintendent at Jurupa Unified School District in the Inland Empire, where we are today. I'm Brad Pomerance, Charter Local Edition.